Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian.
And I'm Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share our thoughts and perspectives on marriage.
We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. Now, let's get right into the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome back if you've been an avid listener, and welcome to our newcomers as well. Today, we want to talk about kings versus clowns. We have both listened to the same podcast and convened and talked about this topic of kings versus clowns, what that means. We'll talk about on this episode. This is a little bit deep, so just prepare to buckle in and maybe even have yourself challenged.
Yeah, and if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, we just encourage you to hit us up on our social channels. That's YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, just searching Marriage is Tougher. And you can hit us up on marriageisttougher.com. If you'd like to be a guest, scroll down to the bottom. There's a form you can fill out and we can connect with you there. We're looking to continue these conversations offline and to continue to grow a community. So we just ask you to reach out to us there so we can receive feedback, have a conversation, and continue anything that we've talked on the podcast, continue on and go deeper in another way. So we always want to have a community and cultivate a community of husbands just trying to win in their marriage.
All right. So how are you feeling about this topic? Where's this? What's your knee-jerk reaction when I say, are you a king or a clown?
I think about the essence of both of those, right? The picture that I get, right? Immediately clown, wig, makeup, oversized clothes, huge shoes. And I think of a king, I think of stature, influence, presence, and doing well for others. So I get a picture of both of them, and then I think, who am I being, right? Which one am I leaning more to? Which is deep to think about, right? Especially as a husband and as a father, are people taking me serious? Do I have authority? Do I carry weight when I walk in the room, or is it just for a moment of entertainment and not being taken seriously, or maybe even dismissed and scary for some people, right? Because some people are terrified of clowns. So that's kind of my first reaction is, what are they? And how do I relate to them? Yours?
Yeah. So I think the way the question first hits me is man, that's almost offensive, right? The kind of the way that rolls off the tongue. Are you a king or a clown? Right?
Right.
Bro, hold on. But yeah, it puts me in a similar thought pattern, right? Well, what is a king? What is a clown? I know I'm not a clown, right? A clown is something that is laughed at, right? A clown entertains. A clown is not serious, right? A clown dresses funny, like you said. And then you think of a king, they are leaders. And I think about what it means to be not only a leader, but a good leader. I think about the difference in dress, right? Whether you go back into the medieval ages, or if you were to think about who the king is now, right? Everything's very structured, right? There is a high level of respect there. When you speak, things happen.
Right.
Right. But I think for me, mostly, I think about legacy. I think about, how do I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered as a king, or do I want to be remembered as a clown? Right. And I can admit that there are some other options in between those two. But I would certainly want to be living more in the king realm rather than the clown realm
Right.
if I had my option, right? And I think about the work that has to go into being a king.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I think it all it stems from trying to be a good leader, right? Because if you think about when someone asks that question, it's basically, are you a leader or not? And not are you a leader or are you a follower? It's almost like, are you a leader or are you the antithesis of a leader?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because when you think of a king, that is, like you said, legacy, longevity, influence, that lasts. A clown is like, for that time, just that time and space, entertainment, no longevity, just trying to invoke an emotion or a reaction, right? And then he or she is gone about the day. But once, a king is always a king until he's dead, right? Or until he passes that on, but he's still referred to as king, right? Um, so that leads into, leadership. Like, what are the kingly attributes that I'm bringing to my marriage? And what are the clown attributes I'm bringing? Right. I know, for the sake of argument, just like Brian said, there's a spectrum between the two. But we want to lean on the most powerful and positive space, right?
Yeah.
So thinking of leading well and what that entails, if you think of a king, generally you think of a good king, right? You just take the good off because you're remembering the king, right? But it's all those positive attributes and those positive traits that, in theory, because we don't, in America, don't really understand that concept, but or have a history of it, just thinking of what we think a good king would be and how to live that out and how they should live it out. That is what I'm thinking about when I'm talking about being a king in marriage.
Yeah. It also makes me think about, and I want to give a shout out to our boy Nate Williams that comes on the show every once in a while. Y'all might also know him as Concise the Barber. I'm not sure if you saw, but he put a new line out of apparel. I believe it's called Impact Over Influence. Right. And that's another deep thought that could relate to this topic, right? A king can have both. A clown may not, right? A clown can influence. You can influence a room. You can make people laugh. You can entertain, like I said earlier. A king can do both. You can be influential, right? Maybe guide people. But when I think about the word impact, if I'm trying to guide someone, if I have impact on them, right? If you think about two cars colliding, that impact changes your direction immediately. So in my mind, that's more powerful than influence, right? Like I could tell you to go somewhere, right? Oh, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink, right? If I have impact, you're gonna drink.
Right.
But yeah, shout out to Concise the Barber, man. He had a great idea, so I hope he does well with that. It also made me think about this movie that I love to watch occasionally. But there's a line in it where the part of Napoleon Bonaparte states there are kings and pawns in this world, emperors and fools. Just let that marinate for a second. Kings and pawns, emperors and fools. And now that's an older movie, right? And I think we might not always use those terms: kings, clowns, pawns, emperors, and fools, right? But I do think we operate within that realm. What do I mean by that? Those are the extremes that we're trying to describe or converse about. When we pass, I feel like if I'm trying to be remembered, I want to be remembered as a king. And I feel like I'm either going to be remembered as a king or I'm going to be not remembered at all. And I feel like even Steve Harvey said something about that. His great grandmother or something asked, do you remember your great grandfather? And he was like, well, no. And he was like, why do you think that is? And she said to him, well, it's because he didn't leave you anything.
Whoa.
He didn't even know his name.
Whoa.
So what are you leaving behind? Right? Are you what is your legacy? Are you leaving trouble? Are you leaving debt? Excuse me. Are you leaving young children or grandchildren, remembering you as a drunk or as someone who was just about the world and not about God? I told you I was going to get deep on this one, man.
You're just dropping these quotes in here and just, those are big time thought provoking things, right? That last Steve Harvey, man, that is, yeah, like, what are you leaving? Are you leaving, even if it's not monetary, right? Are you leaving work ethic? Are you leaving the ability to achieve? Are you leaving how to cultivate a family, right? Are you leaving those things because they're important, and it may not be things that you would think make an impact, but if you can change the culture of your home, right, and change the culture of your workplace or wherever you are, that does leave an impression. And if you have kids, they will pick up on that. Whatever you're leaving behind, they're picking it up. So you're always leaving something behind, but what is it? Is it worth being remembered?
Yeah. If you leave something behind, is it something someone else is going to want to pick up? Right? I mean, think about it this way. How many pennies do you walk over during the course of a week and notice it, but say, it's just a penny. I don't really want that. But if it was a $20 bill, guaranteed you pick it up. I don't care who you are.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So what kind of impact can you still provide when you're no longer here? Much along the lines of what Paul said. Are you leaving behind Or are you affecting your children's desire to learn and earn? Right? Are you cultivating a space for them to become lifelong learners? That's one of the things I think about, right? I could be tired and just, had one of those days, right? But I walk through the door and my youngest may run over to me with a book, right? Can't necessarily speak very well yet, but she can say book, right?
Right.
How do I behave in that moment? Do I say, "Oh, hold on, like daddy's tired, just wait," and then try to push it off, or do I read her the book? It's it's a deep topic, but there's a lot of simple actions you can take to lead to a positive legacy for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a king, again, to me, it comes back to leading well, right? So, what is a good leader to you, right? To me, it's someone who is looking out for the greater good and trying to figure out strategies to impact that and keep it going and even take it to another level. A good leader listens. A good leader receives feedback. A good leader acts on that feedback, right? A good leader is a mentor and is mentored, right? A good leader communicates well in communicating the vision, communicating what is wanted or what's desired, but also communicating when those things don't happen in a way not to strike fear, but that people will grow and want to do the best that they can, right? And want to see themselves as their best version so that they can impact their sphere of influence. So that is one of those kingly traits, or that's what I think of when I think of a king as a good leader, someone who leads well. And that's what I was getting at earlier when I said, excuse me, just we remember a good king, but we don't usually say the good in front of it because that's what we remember is the good things about that. And to me, those positive traits are where I land when I think of king and leader and wanting to be. When someone asks you, are you a king or a clown? Like, I want to say I'm a king, but I want to say that that I've cultivated that space or am in the process of learning how to lead well or leading well.
Yeah. Speaking about leadership, and I've got two things. One on leadership and just one as a question that may run us a little bit over time as we are approaching our self-imposed limit here. First thing about leadership, one of the most things important to me is that impact/influence piece, right? Getting people to move in a positive direction, but doing it in a manner where they want to do it for themselves and not you, and being okay with that, right? So it's just my little nugget. I'm gonna leave that there. On to my question. I believe it was you that said, it's not so much about the money aspect, but when I think about being a king, I also think about being a provider. Now, that's me personally, and there's multiple ways to be a provider. But what I wanted to ask is, how important is it to you, or if we want to generalize it, how important is it for a man to be the provider for his people, right? For his home, if we're talking small scale, if you are actually a king then for your people, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what's your take on that?
When you're talking provider, you're talking monetarily, right? In this
That's
question.
part of it. That's part of it. I think that's where most people would first land. So
Yeah.
I would say monetarily, I guess. Yeah.
I think it's important to look at provision holistically, right? Like, I think we correlate provision monetarily because it's something that we do, and it's a immediate dividend, right? It's immediate return on investment. That's what I mean. That's what I meant to say.
There's a scoreboard.
Yeah. So we are to provide more than money, but money is the easiest thing that we can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how support, if we're providing support for our family, emotional support, right? How that plays out until we get feedback. And we might not get that feedback for years, especially from our kids until they're grown and see, oh, my dad did provide a safe space. He did provide a place where I could bring my friends. He did provide somewhere where I could say anything that I want as long as it was respectful, right? And that builds character of a person. But you don't realize that as a child until you're grown and you understand that other kids didn't get that. When you think just having a voice is a normal thing and that you can speak up and that you can do anything, then you look back and you see people that shut themselves down and don't step out. And then you realize, oh, my parents gave me the opportunity and gave me the thought process that I could do anything that I wanted. And not just in words, but they put me in places where I could test if I could do these things,
Yeah.
right? To me, that's setting up a legacy, as great as leaving an inheritance of money, because leaving money can be squandered.
Mm.
But if you have that attitude that I can do anything and I'm going to go after it and I'm going to go get it and I'm going to work hard, and that's cultivated from, I'd say, from my dad, just because we're talking about men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about how important that is.
Right.
Right. I'm sorry I took it away from money, because money was a low hanging fruit. That's easy. And that's where we lean. But it's really about doing and cultivating. Right. That is what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of providing. Right. Because at my job, I'm doing something and I'm cultivating a value that someone is paying me for. Right. If I'm an entrepreneur, I'm providing a service that people are paying for. Right. I'm cultivating something. I'm working, I'm tilling something, I'm planting something, and people see the fruit of it. Right. And we get that back immediately with money. But those things that we're doing in our family may not be immediate. So we don't see it as high value. But for me, that is a high value, man. Providing in all ways, not just monetarily.
Man, I teed that up for you and you went off. I love it. I love it. Oh man. Yeah, I'd end it right there because you crushed that one, man. Unless there's anything else you want to say, man, that was great. Clip that.
No, I just appreciate y'all listening. As we close out, please hit us up on our socials, reach out, connect with us in a way. Again, Searching Marriage is Tougher on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. If you want to see our faces, if you if you're listening to the podcast, and if you just want to listen in the car with us, hit our podcast. So we appreciate everything, everyone that listens, and we hope that we're as impactful for you as we are to each other, and we would just want to grow this space. So thanks again for listening, and We'll get at you next time.
Peace.